There's a lot of money floating around in the NBA due to the increased cap. A few years ago, the NBA signed those billion-dollar contracts with ESPN, NBC Sports, all ABC Sports as well. They signed three major cable deals for the NBA to be aired on a bunch of stations, ESPN, ABC. And with this increase in cap and the way the free agency has been going, I think as consumers, we, and we being you, have a lot to worry about when it comes to the future of the NBA and what is to come. Essentially, the increase in cap meant that the NBA could pay their stars much, much more money. You saw Stephen Curry with the 5-year, $201 million deal. It was the highest contract ever in the NBA until James Harden came with the highest extension for 4 years, $228 million. And the reason why that cap increased was due to the star power of the NBA. You had players like LeBron James, Stephen Curry, James Harden, Russell Westbrook. They increased the popularity of the game to a huge max. The game hasn't been this popular since basically Michael Jordan was in the league in the 90s. So they have infused the game with a lot of fans, with a lot of revenue, and a lot of these players are benefiting from it. But it's kind of the opposite. Because when you look at it, this increase in cap, all this money floating around, was really supposed to go to the stars like LeBron James, Kevin Durant, etc., etc. Now you're finding it where a lot of these guys that aren't even stars are getting paid star money. When you look at some of these deals that are going around, like just to break down a few, let's just look at them just really, really, really quick. You have Bojan Bogdanovic, 2 years, $21 million. So he's going to basically be making about $10.5 million every year. The average salary of the average player in the NBA used to be like $5 or $6 million. Basically, it's almost going to double. And the scary part about that for you, the consumer, is the NBA and the owners, they're going to overpay for all of their players, not just like their stars. The stars like, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Jimmy Butler, Isaiah Thomas, those guys deserve it. But guys like Bojan Bogdanovic, they don't deserve 2 years, $21 million. That's absolutely crazy. And it's not to say they don't deserve it like based on their merit. They might be like a good player, but the value that they bring to the NBA is not parallel or proportionate to that of a Stephen Curry, to that of a LeBron James. Tim Hardaway Jr., 4 years, $71 million to the New York Knicks. So 4 years, $71 million. I mean, my goodness. These guys are getting paid buku bucks. James Johnson, he's going to sign a 4-year deal with the Miami Heat. 4 years, $60 million. So what's going to happen is the NBA and the NBA owners are going to overpay for all of their regular players. In a couple of years, when the CBA expires or the cap decreases, owners are going to start crying broke. They can't pay their bills. They're overpaying for guys that aren't that great, that are marginal. And it's going to be another lockout. And that's why you should be worried, because with all this money floating around, there's going to be another lockout, like real quick. And I know Chris Paul is the president of the NBA's labor union, but I don't even think that's going to be enough, because basically these guys these guys are robbing money. Like, this is a steal. You know what I'm saying? Like, guys that aren't even that great. Vince Carter, he should be coming in for a veterans billion minimum. He signed a 1-year, $8 million deal. You know what I'm saying? So that's crazy in itself. Yeah, Otto Porter. Otto Porter was offered 4 years. I think it was $106 million. Otto Porter is not a $25 million a year player. And whatever with the inflation, whatever it is, and I don't even care what you say. He's not that guy. He's a great player, solid player, but he's not worth all of that money. And the reason why it's not good for the NBA is because their value that these guys are bringing is not going to match, it's not going to match their contracts. So number one, we're going to critique them. We're going to say, this is the guy we paid $25 million a year, so that's going to hurt you. Number two, what the trend is in the NBA, stars are taking less money. Chris Paul went to the Houston Rockets he's taking less money. He's essentially leaving, I believe he's going to be leaving anywhere between $45 million on the table going to Houston, because they can't, no, that wasn't part of me. That wasn't him. Gordon Hayward left $45 million on the table to go to the Boston Celtics. Then you had Chris Paul, who could have signed a max $200 million deal to stay in LA, and he didn't. Now, this system was made so home teams, or the teams that have the stars, can keep and pay their stars the maximum amount of money. Now, what are the stars doing? The stars are taking less money to go to situations where they feel that they can win. So Kevin Durant took less. Chris Paul's taking less. Gordon Hayward's taking less. You know what's going to happen to the system of all these guys getting overpaid? Owners are going to say, well, you guys said you wanted more money. You guys said you're underpaid. LeBron James made a good point. Stephen Curry is underpaid at $201 million for 5 years. You know why? Because every time Stephen Curry and the Warriors are on TV, you want to watch them. And that's all over the United States. They're bringing ratings, even if they're playing in New Orleans, if they're playing in Minnesota, if they're playing in Orlando, where Orlando doesn't even have a great team. You want to watch that team play. You want to see Stephen Curry. So he is underpaid. But guess what? Owners can counteract that and say, you guys are underpaid only because you want to be. We raised the salary cap with all this revenue, and you guys are taking less money. So guess what? I'm no longer going to pay Otto Porter $106 million for 4 years. I'm no longer going to pay Tim Hardaway 4 years, $71 million. We're locking you out because I'm losing money now, because we raised the cap so you guys can be happy, so you guys can get paid more money. You guys aren't taking the money. You leave it on the table so it could trickle down. And what's crazy is it's trickling down to all these players that aren't worth the money. And it's a system that's basically hurting. It's going to hurt the NBA and hurt us, the consumer, due to the simple fact that the NBA is creating almost, it's like a socialistic or communistic system where, basically it's like, it doesn't matter how much value you create in the NBA, you're getting paid basically the same amount. Otto Porter is making the same amount of money almost like a Kevin Durant. But Otto Porter and Kevin Durant, two different players, two different values that they bring to the NBA, two different values that they bring to their team. So this is basically a very, very dangerous game that's being played by the NBA and their labor and the Players Association with the NBA, because a lot of these players aren't even getting better. It's not like, you could see some of these guys like CJ Miles or like Vince Carter's. He much respect to you, Vince. I respect you. He should have came in at the veterans minimum, in my opinion, but here's the thing, for players, it's like, I'm making money. I'm making my own money. Like, this is me. And I agree. Get all the money that you can. But what I'm trying to say is the value that these players are going to bring is not going to be proportionate to the money. It's going to be way, way off. And the fact that all these stars are leaving money, most of them are leaving money on the table. You know what I'm saying? Besides Curry, Harden, and LeBron. And LeBron might even take less next year wherever he decides to go. So this is scary, you know what I'm saying? Like, you got Danilo Gallinari, 3 years, $65 million. Danilo Gallinari is he's not that kind of guy. He doesn't bring that kind of value to the game of basketball. So when these lower level guys are getting paid like the higher level guys, the owners can say, well, you guys set the system up and we're going to start lowballing the stars, because You know what I'm saying? You know, and we're gonna lowball the stars. We're gonna lowball the mid-tier players, because the mid-tier players, when their contract expires, you know, when the CBA expires, they can't come back and say, well, I want 4 years, $60 million. You can't do that because you're not that kind of player. You know what I'm saying? And if Kevin Durant is willing to take less, owners and general managers can go to the mid-level guys and say, you gotta take less. The star players taking less, you gotta take less. So at the end of the day, with the revenue share and everything like that, everything seems good. It seems great, but somewhere in there, it's gonna come to a head, and there's gonna be a big rift, which is gonna really hurt us, the consumer. So you need to watch out for that, and you need to be prepared to possibly miss basketball for an entire year, because there's gonna be a deadlock. Players are going to say, you know, we're still underpaid. Owners are going to say, we raised the cap, everything's raised, and you guys won't take the money. So guess what? We're not going to pay you, and we're not going to pay these other guys, because you're taking less and these other guys are taking more. You bring more value, but these other guys don't. It's kind of weird, and you would think that maybe the NBA should possibly consider like more of a, because this is, the United States is a capitalistic country, but a capitalistic approach as opposed to these labor unions and stuff like that. But then, you know, these lower mid-level exception guys, these mid-tier players, they will get fleeced, because owners can come in and say, well, we'll only negotiate a deal for you for $1 million for this year. And maybe that would be better. Maybe that would make guys get better in the interim, so they can sign huge deals. Because if they had more of a capitalistic kind of system set up without the labor unions, or maybe the labor unions will have a different approach, then, you know, a guy like LeBron, he's going to get 50, 60, 70, $80 million a year. So, you know, remove that whole cap on the star players, and then you put a cap on the bum players or something like that. Because his value to the game is huge, as opposed to these mid-tier guys. It's not. And it's going to hurt us, because we're going to get all these games on ESPN with the Atlanta Hawks and the Knicks and the Denver Nuggets. They're going to be on primetime TV. The ratings are going to go down. Attendance is going to go down in those places, because a lot of teams are creating super teams. And then you're going to be like, well, you know, the owner's going to say, I'm losing money. Owner of the Suns is going to say, I'm losing money. Owner of the Nuggets is going to say, this is not good for my business. I'm losing money. Nobody's watching us on TV. And then there goes the problem, because their players, the money that they're making, you would think they would get better and understand the responsibility they have to the fans, because fans, what they do, and people, you know, that don't have the money, we look at people like that have millions, and we're like, well, what are you doing to deserve this money? Like the Kardashians. What did you do to get this money? You're not even worth this money. But people that have the money, they don't even look at it like that. They just look at it as, this is the way of life. This is how I get it. So it's two different mindsets. And the thing is, are you creating value? Are you elevating the game? If you're elevating the game and you're creating value, I have no problem with you getting 4 years, $71 million. I have no problem with you getting $106 million. I have no problem with you getting $200, $300 million. But some of these guys are not going to create the value that the owners are paying them for, and the owners are counting on this so they can flip the script on these guys the next CBA. You got to watch out. This is Vlad from Hoops Junction with Hoops Meets Hoopla. Peace.